So we talked about Errol, the true Spence Jr. We talked about Bud Crawford. Now for that 3, that left hook. Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. 8 division champion. Like, that's 8 division champion. And we just so happen to share the same birthday, December 17th. He's a Sagittarius. Man, he's also a senator, like in the Philippines. And he's over 40. And he's beating dudes at 30 in Keith Thurman, Adrian Broner in his late 20s. Like, he's keeping up with the young bucks, man. He is keeping up with the young bucks even at this old age. And he's a legend. He's legendary. And yeah.
Let me put it to you in this perspective. All right. When we talk about Pacquiao. All right. People that are not as educated about boxing and they talk about Pacquiao and say he's washed up, he's too old, he's just chasing money, he need to go stay in the Philippines and be a senator and this, that, and other. Let me put it to you like this. I looked up on a website recently, right? I was looking at some information, basically for Spence Jr. and Crawford. I was looking at their records, right? And there's one website I went on, it had their ranking in the welterweight division and how many boxers were registered in the welterweight division, right?
Right.
And the number of boxers worldwide that are registered in the welterweight division, I think it was something like 13 or 1400 fighters. Okay. So if you want to put it into perspective, out of 13 or 400 boxers that are registered, and you can say Spence is better than him, you can say Crawford is better than him, you can say Porter is better than him, you can say Thurman is better than him, and maybe that's it. So let's just say 5. So out of 14 registered boxers in your weight division, and you're 5, in the top 5, at the age of 42, after like 70 fights. Come on, man. Come on. You don't even have to go into how many divisions he won titles in, how many championship fights he's had, how many decades that he's held the championship, what his standing is as an all-time great, what his standing is on the all-time pound for pound list. You don't even have to get to that part. Just look at what I just said, and then everything else will fall into place.
Yeah, I personally don't think that Thurman is better than him. So I think he's 4 out of 1,400 because Thurman had the opportunity. And he just didn't capitalize. And Thurman has recognized what he did and how he did it, and what he did incorrect. Right. And he's working to fix that. It's just with Keith Thurman, man. I don't know what happened to one time, but we only see him one time every other year. Like it's I don't know, but Manny Pacquiao, like the way you broke it down, I like that because he's at the age of 42, he's still in the top 5 in one of the most loaded divisions in boxing right now. I'm not sure if you saw this, and I purposefully didn't put it on the call sheet or the itinerary, but there were rumors today that Top Rank has reserved the June 5th date, and it's rumored that Terrence Bud Crawford and Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao will be fighting on that date.
I'm sorry, I got excited. I actually saw that yesterday.
Yeah. I'm holding back my excitement, just because we've heard so many things concerning Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao recently. Yeah. Ryan Garcia said he wasn't fighting Tank Davis because he had a fight with Manny Pacquiao on the way. It was rumored that if Conor McGregor won his last fight, him and Pacquiao was going to have a mega fight. And now it's rumored that Terrence Crawford, and this has all been this year in 2021.
In 3 months, all those rumors and false flags, I should say, have happened. And that's what upsets me about what's surrounding Pacquiao right now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree that it is kind of murking or muddying the waters, I should say, around Manny Pacquiao, because, like you said, only 3 months we heard 3 different rumors. So I'm not gonna be really truly excited until I see the official announcement from either Bud Crawford, Manny Pacquiao, or Top Rank. Like until I see the official flyer with a date, or until we have a conference, until we have a press conference, I am trying to withhold my excitement. Now, do I think this will be a great fight? 100%. 100%. Do I think it's a few years too late? 100%. I personally think Terrence Crawford should have fought Pacquiao. Before he moved up to 147. That's just me. Or that should have been his first fight at 147.
No, I agree. I think they should have fought about maybe 4 years ago or so, at 140.
Yeah, it's happening a few years too late, but nonetheless, Pacquiao and Mayweather happened 5 years later than it should have. So either way, even though it's 3 years too late, it's still gonna be a tremendous fight. And so my hypothetical question to you is, say this is a done deal. Who do you have winning that fight between Bud and Pacquiao?
Oh, that's an easy one. My heart is telling me Pacquiao can do it again, but my common sense brain is going to tell me that Crawford is going to beat him for several reasons. Like you mentioned earlier, Crawford doesn't do like one thing super duper great, but he does everything very well.
Mm-hmm.
He can box, and whether he chooses to go orthodox or southpaw, he can bang if he wants to. That rough style, that rough and tumble style, like he could have done against Horn, or he did against Horn in some spots, and he did against Mean Machine, right? His footwork isn't super, or he doesn't really have fast feet like they say, but he always has himself in the correct position, whether he's on offense or on defense. He has power. Every boxer can take you out with one punch. It's just if he hit you with the right punch. So he does have power. He doesn't have that one punch power, but if he hits you with a couple of combinations, he can get you out of there. So he does everything well. And also, with top-notch fighters, he's always in shape. He's always ready to go.
Always.
He's mentally focused. He doesn't have any outside distractions. So, when he comes in there, he's 100%, So, yeah, I think this might be Pacquiao's last dance. I just hope it doesn't go the same way like he did Oscar De La Hoya. But, history shows even the greatest of the greats, they hang on a little bit too long and it doesn't end very well.
Yeah. I agree with you. The only thing I disagree with is Bud's punching power, because he knocked Benavidez out with that uppercut, with that counter uppercut. Oh my God, it was pretty. But needless to say, Benavidez was on 1.5 legs that night. But I think he does have one punch power. I don't think he has enough one punch power for Pacquiao. Let's be clear on that, because Pacquiao has a chin. The only time I really seen him knocked out by one punch was against Marquez, and that was later in the fight. So I'm not saying that is impossible. It's just highly unlikely. Yeah. and I agree with you. I do think that Bud just has too many tools in his tool bag right now, and Pacquiao is a little bit too old. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think this will be a passing of the guard fight if it happens. I just don't want to see, like you said, I don't want to see Pacquiao like how Pacquiao did to De La Hoya. Or I don't want to see Pacquiao how Paul Smith Jr. did to Bernard Hopkins and knocked him out the ring. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to see that. Not to Pacquiao. You know what I'm saying? So that's just hypothetical if they would fight. So that brings me to we talked about Errol Spence, we talked about Bud Crawford, we talked about Manny Pacquiao. So we have the boxing super series, and you and I both play basketball, so we both played in round robin tournaments before. So my question to you, in a round robin tournament of these three and three to four other fighters in the welterweight division, you came up with a bracket that I'm going to insert when I edit it. You came up with a bracket, and you basically came up with a tournament, and I think it's personally brilliant. You should be paid if this ever happens. So walk me through your bracket, man.
Okay.
Walk me through your bracket.
Of course, this is a dream tournament for the 147-pound division. And basically, I just matched up fighters who I thought would bring good matchups. You know how they say styles make fights?
Right.
So I kind of matched it like that. And then I also looked at who was, for example, in one of the brackets you'll see, I threw in somebody who very few people talk about in the welterweight division, but he is a #1 contender for one of the belts. And then, of course, I separated these brackets by, I put a champion in each bracket currently. And then there's several other brackets where there are former champions. So it's kind of like champion against champion. And then in this hypothetical tournament, when it all washes out, it's going to be one ultimate super champion at the welterweight division. So the fighters that I have and the matchups that I have is in the first bracket, I have Errol Spence Jr. against Thurman. So I matched those two guys up because when Thurman was champion, he was reluctant to give Spence a shot. Now that Spence is champion, Thurman is begging and clamoring for a fight.
Right.
That fight probably won't happen for several reasons, even though they're PBC. So that fight probably won't happen. So I threw that in there because that's something that we'll probably never see. So another bracket I have Ugas, right? He's been recently elevated to WBA champion, so I put him at the top of a bracket. And for Ugas, I have Jamal James. Not a lot of people know Jamal James at the 147-pound division, but he is the #1 contender for the WBA belt. So Ugas being the newest champion, and the #1 contender. So I matched those two guys up. Just interesting to see two new guys get in there, and you never know what could happen. Never know what could happen when you put two guys in a fight. Just like the movie, Any Given Sunday, hey, any given night in that ring, you never know what could happen, right? In another bracket, I have Crawford versus Porter. Well, Crawford is the WBO champion at 147. And like you and I discussed earlier, his wins at 147 compared to Spence are not the best, but he does have some victories at 147. He's still undefeated. And, of course, Porter's losses were to Kell Brook, who was champion at the time. He lost to Thurman, who was champion at the time. And he lost a very close fight to Spence, who was champion and still is champion. So that's virtually champion versus champion there. And
Yeah.
I believe Crawford. I believe Porter is the #1 contender for the WBO belt.
He is.
So
he is the mandatory.
So so that's why I put it that way. And then in the last bracket, I have Pacquiao versus Danny Garcia. Right. The reason I put Danny Garcia is against Pacquiao is like we talked about. Pacquiao is 42 years old. He's definitely on the backside of his career, all the wear and tear, of all those years of boxing. And I put Danny in there because every time Danny goes up against a top-notch fighter, he just doesn't pull through. He just doesn't, get over that hump. So that matchup there is if Danny can't get past Pacquiao at this stage in Pacquiao's career, then Danny, he don't need to be considered a top contender in the 147-pound division.
I agree with that. And I like your brackets. I would just make one change, I should say. I would have instead of Jamal James, I would sort of have like, how the NCAA tournament has that play-in game. So I would basically have like a play-in like elimination bout, I would say. And instead of Jamal James, I would have Vergil, Ortiz.
I knew you was gonna say that.
I would have Vergil Ortiz fight Jaron Boots Ennis for that elimination bout, and the winner of that fight Ugas.
Now check this out. I was gonna put Ennis in there. I was gonna put Ortiz in there, and I was gonna put this Russian guy in there, who I believe is the #1 contender for the WBC belt. Right, but then all three of those guys, Ennis, the Russian guy, man, I forgot his name and I don't want to mess it up, but he's 18-0, and he's doing well, but he hasn't fought that next level competition yet. Ennis is the same way. I believe Ennis is 18-0 with one draw.
Yeah,
something
like that. Yeah, close to that.
And he's getting there. And Vergil Ortiz, of course, he just fought Hooker. He just beat him. However, he beat Hooker, but it's not like he totally blew him out.
Exactly.
Hooker was doing very well before the injury. And I think it was the injury that stopped the fight, not his lack of will to continue to stop the fight. So anyway, those three guys I think are still like a notch below these guys here. So that's why I didn't include or insert any of those three guys anywhere. And on my original, when I first started this, I actually had Ennis versus Ortiz, and the winner gets inserted into the tournament. But then I took it away because I didn't want to, have too much or have that bracket look too busy. But that was if I would have had Ennis and Ortiz, that would have made 10. But to make it symmetrical and make it kind of easy, I just left it at 8.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. Yeah, I would love to see where Vergil Ortiz and Ennis rank against these guys, because we won't know if they're truly a notch below until we see them fight somebody that we consider elite. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like Iverson wouldn't be on the map if he didn't cross over Jordan. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So it's kind of like we have to give them that moment against Jordan to figure out how good they are. And that's just where I'm at with it, because I personally think Ennis is more ready than Vergil Ortiz, but I believe Ortiz has more power. So that would be a good matchup stylistically to me. But these are all hypotheticals, but we're going to go with what you have on the bracket. So give me a winner, Spence and Thurman.
Spence.
Okay. So On the same side of that bracket, you have Ugas and James. Who do you think will win that one?
That's tough.
Yeah.
Ugas. I have to give it to right now. Ugas.
Yeah, I agree. That was the toughest one to pick. That was the toughest one to pick. So I agree with you. I believe Spence will beat Thurman, and I believe Ugas will edge out James. So on the other side of the bracket, we have Crawford versus Porter. Who you got? Oh, man. In this one, it really depends on the fight that Bud Crawford fights. If he decides to try to bang Porter, I don't think it'll end well for Bud. I think Porter will edge that out because that's Porter's game. Porter can box, let's be clear, but he's more known for banging. So if Crawford is coming trying to keep them on the outside, use his boxing skills and choose when to engage, I think Crawford can win. But man, Porter showed me a lot against Spence. Porter showed me a lot.
Out of all the brackets, that would be the toughest one.
Yeah.
To pick and choose. That right there is very difficult. I think a lot of people underestimate Porter's boxing ability. And of course, he's a come forward type of guy. He's not going to take a step backward, and he always applies good pressure. What I mean, good pressure is just not reckless. It's just not like he's walking towards you,
right.
And no. He has decent footwork. He knows how to get in and out of range. But when he's out of range, he's still close enough to where, okay, I could take a half a step in or a step in, and now I'm back on you again. So I'm not going to let you breathe. That's what I mean about pressure, So that's going to be a tough one. But if I'm forced to pick and choose, I'll go with Crawford.
Okay, so that brings us to the last matchup of the first round, Pacquiao and Garcia. This is another tough one. I'm going to give Pacquiao a slight edge. And the only reason being is Danny Garcia, he is more of a counter puncher. Pacquiao is known for that in and out, unorthodox movement. And I don't, if Danny Garcia couldn't catch Errol Spence, I don't think he'll be able to catch Pacquiao. So I think while this will be a competitive fight, I think it'll be the most boring to watch because it'll be a chess match between them. And I give Pacquiao a slight edge.
I agree with your decision, but I disagree with your reasoning why.
Okay. Talk to me.
Pacquiao by decision, but not for what you mentioned. It's what Pacquiao still can do and what Danny Garcia was never able to do. And what Danny Garcia was never able to do is utilize his feet. That joker walks around like he has cinder blocks on his feet. No, I'm serious. So that's in large part the reason when he hits you with that left hook, he's playing it and he's getting that torque. You know what I'm saying? So when he connects, like Amir Khan was outboxing Danny Garcia easy, and he got caught with that left hook, and it was over.
Yep.
Right? I don't think that he will catch Pacquiao like that. And Pacquiao's footwork, like even Pacquiao is still like 87, 88 years old. He still has footwork. He still has footwork, and as displayed against Thurman, he still has a little bit of crack in that left hand.
Absolutely.
He hurt Thurman in the first round. Obviously, it was a flash knockdown, but he still hit him with that right. And he hit him again to the body in this, what was that, the 9th or 10th round or something like that?
The 9th. Mm-hmm.
So, so Pacquiao still has a little bit of juice in those hands. So, that's why I believe he'll beat him. The footwork, and he still has the majority of his speed, and he still has the majority of his power.
Right.
So Pacquiao on that.
Okay. So then that brings us to the Crawford-Pacquiao matchup, and we already discussed that we think Crawford would win that. Yeah. So coming out of, let's just say, the east side of the bracket would be Terrence Bud Crawford, and going back to the west side of the bracket, we have Spence versus Ugas. Who do you have in that one?
Oh, Spence. Ugas, in my opinion, is just a step below those guys as far as the championship level. He's not as polished. Out of all those guys, out of all the champions, out of all the belt holders, he's the least accomplished. And I think Spence I think Spence will easily outbox him. Easily. Yeah. I think Spence would do to Ugas what he did to Danny Garcia.
Okay. Yeah, I think it'll look more like Mikey Garcia. But either way, it's going to be a boxing clinic by Spence. So that brings us to the Ultimate Welterweight Super Championship. Spence and Bud Crawford.
I really don't even want to comment on that fight. I really don't.
Either way, like we were talking about this being the fight that everybody wants to see. The fact that this bracket still has them fighting is just like, please, boxing gods, make it happen. Yeah. Because I promise you, if we have herd immunity in the U.S. by that time, I know you got your first dose of the vaccination, baby. Lester Ruiz Sr. and Jr. will be there. Yeah. You hear me?
Yeah, I would be there. I would be there.
We would be there. So I don't want to comment on that fight because it's really 50-50, and we could debate all day for this, all day on this. So we're just going to leave it there. The Ultimate Welterweight Super Championship, the bracket designed by Pops. Any last comments, any last remarks before we go ahead and get out of here?
Hey, one thing before you close out. One of these days when we get together, we need to talk about the lower weight class guys. We seen Valdez and Burchett, we seen Estrada, Chocolatito, Anue at 126. You mentioned Frampton and all those guys. We have some really, really good talent and good fighters at the 130-pound limit and below, that these guys, they don't get as much light as, let's say, 135 or 147 or 160 or even the heavyweights. But those guys, they got skill, they got abilities, they can fight, they got energy, they're action-packed. And I'm telling you right now, for those who did not see Valdez and Burchett, or you didn't see Estrada and Chocolatito, I'm telling you, you missed some good fights. You missed some good action there. So,
all right,
that's my closeout.
We gonna make it happen. Y'all heard General G-Pa. he got to his bag. But we definitely gonna make it happen, man. As always, I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Pops. I appreciate you taking the time. And we gonna make this thing happen, Cap.
All right. I'm out.
So stay tuned. It's your boy, Boxing LJ, aka Left Hook Les, and my special guest, Pops. We are out of here.